and welcome to Potterware 4.0. This is the opening screen when you start up the application. And I have a 3-button mouse, which I highly recommend when you work in 3D. If I click with my left button, I'm able to rotate around this default model. If I use my scroll wheel, I can zoom in and out. And if I use my right click, I can pan up and down. Now, to a lot of you who've worked in 3D in the past, this may appear to be a wireframe, but in effect, it's actually called a toolpath, and it's one continuous spiral that the printer head will follow as it's creating this model. This is the default shape that opens when you first launch Potterware. It is created from a series of settings that are here on the right. It's profile. And if you look at the shape of these little black dots, it kind of mimics the shape of the profile of your object. And the A, B, C, D, and E relate to each one of these sliders. And these numbers very loosely relate to millimeters. So the object, you can see its dimensions are turned on right now, which are turned on by default. They are in millimeters. For those of you who think in inches, like most Americans, like myself, a millimeter is 25.4 per inch. So I just rounded off to 25 in my mind, and I think, 50 would be 2 inches, 75 would be 3 inches, 100 would be 4 inches. I just do the fuzzy math. But you can see right here with the readouts that the diameter of this object is around 81 millimeters. And you can also see that its widest point here with these sliders is at 85. So it's not precise. The readout is precise, but these sliders are not precise. And there are a lot of factors when you're printing in clay. For example, often your clay will shrink when it's fired, and especially clay that you're preparing for clay printing, because you do need to make it a little bit more wet than clay that comes right off the shelf. So these dimensions are really just a general guideline, and I think what's important here is to understand the relationship between these sliders and the shape that you're going to get. So the height of the object defaults to 85 millimeters high. That is not set here at the profile. It's actually set in your object settings, which are over here. And you can see that the object height here is 85. That is the default. And the profile being smooth is the default. Now I can kind of manipulate this profile very easily by moving these sliders. You'll see the screen will go a little blurry, and then your object will update. So it's kind of fun to play with these sliders when you first open Potterware, and you can design a bowl if you want to. You could kind of make this have a nice slopey, rounded shape. Might be a little bit difficult to print. I think one of the learning curves is translating between what the model is showing you on the screen and what is actually printable. Those of you who've had experience with clay know that a very big overhang like this is going to stress the capabilities of physics when you have wet clay that's printing. But Potterware is generally pretty amazing at allowing you to print difficult shapes. One other thing that I'll say about this particular part of the interface, the profile part of the interface, is that there's a default setting here of smooth profile, but you also can change that to angular profile. I think with the shape that I currently have in here, we won't really be able to see a huge difference. This looks a little bit angular here. But if I start to manipulate it differently, it'll be quite obvious that this is an angular setting versus a smooth setting. I think I'll stop right here. These are really the key points of the profile part of the interface. The only one thing maybe I should say is if you were to change your object to be bigger, so right now this is a little bit over 3 inches here, 85 millimeters, but let's say I wanted it to be closer to 6 inches, I'll put in 150 millimeters there with my fuzzy math of 25, and you'll see the character of this has really changed, and obviously the print would really change too. So depending on what you want to make, a cup, a plate, a vase, any kind of cylindrical object is possible in Potterware 4.0. And it's basically how high you're going to set it and what its profile looks like that determine all of those parameters.